Hey folks, Jimmy here with Spooky Appalachia. Y'all have been telling me over and over how much you love these long videos, so I decided to grab all the ones that I read off for you over the past, year, and make a super long cut. I give you Spooky Appalachia fan submitted ghost stories collection volume 1. I hope you enjoy it. Hey everyone, welcome to Spooky Appalachia. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Jared.
Jared's joining us this week as a special guest star. Jared, you remember the Engles Castle video I put out a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, I do. And guys, if you haven't seen that, be sure and go check it out. It's really awesome.
It really is. It's kind of an unknown haunted location near me that people didn't know about. I'd heard about it growing up. There were a bunch of different stories, and people said it was haunted by the lady in the mirror. I talk about it in the video. I even got a picture capture. There's a saying that if you take a picture of yourself there, there's a chance you might get the lady in the mirror. And I was showing Jared here the pictures, and he found what might be the lady in the mirror in the photo.
Yeah, it's really, really wild.
Mm-hmm. I posted all over social media, so y'all, chances are you've seen it. I might link it in the description or something. But yeah, so we've got two stories that fans sent in, and they're shorter, so I figured I'd combine them into one video. So our first story was sent to us by a fan named Jesse, who thinks they've been seeing a spirit in the window while fishing on the river near Engles Castle many times over the years.
Yeah, it says, hello, I saw your post on We Are Radford with the Engles Castle video. I first want to say I really enjoyed it. It got me to thinking, though. I floated down the river, fishing, going past that place for years. Many times now I've seen a lady in the window, just staring at the river. So I always thought she lived there till I saw your video and learned that no one lives there. I think it could be the lady in the mirror that you mentioned. So I'll try and get a picture of it next time.
Wow. So thanks for that story. I've actually kayaked through there quite a few times myself. It's on the New River. It's a big fishing spot around here. I've been fishing through there many years myself. I've passed by the house many times, but I don't think I've ever seen anything. But I've always been kind of creeped out every time I go by, you know?
Yeah, one of those places you just get that feeling, you know?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to do the video, you know?
Right.
Well, what do you think of that story?
I'll tell you, man, that's wild. But, it really makes you think, seeing something like that and it looks real. It makes you wonder, how many ghosts do people see on a daily basis, but they just think it's a real person?
Hard to say,
Yeah.
Hard to say. Well, thanks again for that story. And then our next person left us a similar story in the comments on the video. If you want to read that one for us, Jared.
Yeah, it says, Engles Castle is definitely haunted. So I can say that for sure. My friend lives down there. So we used to run around in the field behind it when we were kids. So we both swore every time we would be in the field, we'd look up in the top window facing the road and see a lady staring at us. We'd also see animals wandering around like cats, dogs, and foxes. So we'd follow them, and they'd take a corner and be gone.
Wow. What do you think of that? I've never heard of the animals like that.
Now that
Did
one
you?
I actually have heard
Oh,
of
okay.
before. I've heard a lot of people saying they've seen like spirit animals, I guess you would say,
Oh, okay.
um, saying that they've seen like dogs, cats, and for some reason, dogs and cats seem to be the most that I've heard.
Huh.
And I actually recently had a lady send me a picture of what she captured, thought would be a ghost cat.
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, big thanks to the person who sent this one in as well. Definitely cool. And hopefully we can get some more of these over the next couple years. Get this place famous. They're trying to save
Absolutely.
the house and do some ghost tours and stuff, and open up for investigations. So that'd be really cool if they could save that place. Hey everyone, welcome to Spooky Appalachia. We're here with Jared and Julie today, which you all have seen both of them before a couple times. So we're going to do something new today, something we've never done before, and that is an interview with someone who's had an experience. And this particular experience is one we've covered a few times. A lot of you newer people probably have never heard it. It's an experience Julie had at St. Albans. We featured it as a story last Halloween. It's probably one of my favorite stories of all time. Okay, so first, we've got a list of questions. The first one is, Julie, can you give us a quick rundown on St. Albans? Why it's so special?
Well, St. Albans was originally built in 1892 up on a bluff over top of the New River in current day Fairlawn, Virginia. It was originally built as a private preparatory school for wealthy boys, mostly from the South. It had a really good reputation for a while, but it quickly turned bad because it became the jocks versus the more brainier kids. Mm-hmm. And a lot of bullying went on, and it spread out of the school out into the town of Radford. And eventually it got to be such a bad reputation that, all the good people, quote unquote, didn't want to send their sons to the school. So then the school ended up closing down. The building sat basically empty for a few years, and then it was opened back up. And I believe it was 1916. Dr. King come in and bought it and opened it up. He had an idea of, he worked at other psychiatric facilities, and the treatment back then was, really barbaric. Mm-hmm. They basically were just treated like zoo animals. And he had a theory that if you treated the person like, in a good way, like family, and having like a home atmosphere, not just in cages, that it could help them better. Which, I believe he was onto something there. So that was his dream, and he got some investors together, and they opened it up. They were so short on money, they couldn't even afford new letterhead. So they kept the name St. Albans from the school because there was still letterhead with St. Albans. And so then it functioned as I think it was like January 1916 or 17. They admitted their first patients, a lot of alcohol treatment. Then it really just kind of evolved into, not just for psychiatric issues. It was for, if you was homeless, there was a place to stay. If families, they had too many mouths to feed and they couldn't feed the children, they would take children there and, drop them off, and they would live there. But the place, it was overcrowded, had a lot of overcrowding, but everybody there had a job to do. They farmed their own food. They had their own dairy cattle. They had their own grapes. I mean, they grew everything. Matter of fact, they were so successful with their gardening that during the Depression, they basically kept the people in Radford alive with food.
Because they had, I'd heard that too. Yeah. Well, I guess, of course, I've heard a lot of it. I've been there so many times. Yeah, sorry.
So it stayed privately owned up until, I want to say, like maybe the 90s, and then a hospital network bought it out, and then eventually just got too old to be upgraded and updated and kept current. But while it was a hospital, they were kind of considered cutting edge and for the times, but they would, now it's, we look at it and go, yikes, can't believe they did that, because they would, electroshock therapy, which back then it was this experimental. Now they know where to set the voltage and all that stuff. So, but back then it was just try this and see what works. Then they also would do hydrotherapy, which is where they put them in these tubs with water and cover them, and then it could be days at a time maybe, and they would like do hot water and then do cold water, and then they would do insulin shock therapy, where they would purposely put them into an insulin shock and then bring them out of it. I think their theory was if you could shock the system, it would, knock you out of whatever psychiatric or disorder or whatever was going on with you. Today that sounds crazy. I mean, no pun intended. It just sounds just wild that they would do that to people. But back then they were, that was kind of cutting edge technology, and it was a big step up from just throwing them in cages and treating them like, like animals or something.
Yeah, because there was one time in history where they thought it was demons.
Yep.
Yes.
Affecting people, and where it's nothing, no kind of physical or any kind of mental problems going on inside. It was demons.
Yeah. So so for his times, I mean, it sounds bad now looking at from today's point of view, but back then it was a much more humane treatment. And they would actually set up as ones that were healthy enough and able to. They had a dining hall. They had with the meals were served with linens and fine china, and they had tea in the afternoon. I mean, it was I think they tried what they could do, but meanwhile they were like torturing people to try to help them. But
so if you look at some of the other places from back then, those were way worse than St. Albans was. Like Dejournette, somewhere like that was horrible for people. It'd be spec for 30,000 people, and they'd have 80.
Yeah.
And there'd be like all these people. I heard about one that got shut down. There was like feces in the floor, and nobody had clothes. And oh gosh,
it was just bad. And and the really sad thing is, back in those days, it really didn't take a whole lot to get put into a facility like that, especially if you were a woman. I mean, it could be something like, okay, my husband's tired of me, and he's got a new girlfriend or whatever, but he's got to get rid of me. So, okay, she's crazy and lock her away, because women were kind of property basically, and that happened a lot. Women were put in there. Postpartum depression, that would get you put into a facility like that. It's all kinds of things like that. It didn't take much, really. Maybe you could have been a woman and had too many opinions, and it wasn't allowed, so they might put you away for it.
I had to call him about my wife.
We're going to hear bad news about Jimmy one day. You're not careful,
ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy will be missed.
Yeah. Find me floating in the New River. Oh gosh. Well, Jared, do you want to?
Julie, what do you think made you want to volunteer?
Well, what got me started up there is, when I was a kid, we used to go to haunted houses during Halloween every year, and just loved that stuff. And my mom, she was one of those, she loved like horror movies and things like that, and I kind of inherited that. Big Stephen King fan and everything. And I'd always wondered what it would be like to work in a haunted house like that. And the year before I got to St. Albans, it was just kind of a fluke. A friend of mine knew somebody that was going to open a haunted house down in Roanoke, and there's a group called Haunted Star City. So I went down there. I really didn't think they was going to bring me in, because I had zero experience, at doing that, but kind of got my feet wet there. They opened one year and then didn't open back up anymore. And I thought, well, that was a cool experience, and I'll kind of sad I'll never get to do it again. But then late summer of the following year, a fellow actor I worked with at Haunted Star City contacted me through Facebook Messenger and wanted to know if I could do him a favor. Him and his fiance, they were wanting to get married, and they were into like the Corpse Bride and all that. And they had talked to the director at St. Albans about see if they could get married up there. and they need to go up there and talk to her. And they lived the other side of Roanoke, and neither one of them drove. So they said, would you give us a ride? So I'm like, okay. I've heard of the building. So I said, I want to go get a peek at this place. So I said, sure. So I picked them up, took them up there. Before it was said and done, ended up being talked in. I was going to be the maid of honor, and they made a deal. Instead of them paying to use the facility, and as soon as they found out we were scare actors at haunted houses, Marcel, the director, she made them a bargain. How about instead of, paying them money, then they would have the wedding. What they would do, they was going to do a Halloween night. And that year, the start of the route was going in through the grand staircase door. So right there on the big porch. And the plan was they were going to get married there on the porch. And of course, I'd be one of the witnesses, and we'd all be in costume. And then we would go through and go through the haunted house. But then in exchange for the use of the facility for them to get married, we would act for one night to, help them out. So I was like, okay, well, that sounded great until about 2 weeks or so before we were supposed to get started. And I got to thinking I had heard rumors about this place being haunted and all that. And I started getting scared. And I was like, well, I don't want to go in there and be in this dark place and get scared and go running out of there and embarrass myself and everybody else. So I ended up calling up there and I asked, can I come in, just early and just trying to give it a try for a night? And went up there and I loved it. I mean, I had some crazy, the very first night I had an experience in there. But I think what drew me in, once I got over the initial fear of it, and the curiosity kicked in. Because, I'm trying to, debunk and explain these strange things that I'm seeing, experiencing, going on in there. But I actually was just supposed to go up there and act one Halloween night. And I got sucked into that place. I don't know. I think it does call to people. I think pretty much every volunteer up there has a story of how they got, sometimes are really convoluted stories of how they ended up at St. Albans. And we tend to stay when we get there because the building is just, I've never seen anything or experienced any place like it. I mean, and I've been to a few other places, and it's just, I tell you, I went in there and I was always open-minded, but a little skeptical. I'm still a skeptic. I'm a skeptical believer at this point. But I have experienced so many things in there that before that, I'd have been like, okay, maybe you're drunk or something, but then you got an experience, and then other people are experiencing it. And so I'm at the point now, I'm open. I believe anything. If you tell me you've seen this or that, I'm like, you may have. I don't know, because, I've just learned that the things you always thought weren't possible, there you are, you experience it in there. And it's just, and they'll make sure that, they're there too, especially, like just a regular work day or something, or sleep on the floor or something. I've had some of my wildest experiences just on a work day. They got to let you know that they're there. I've had little pebbles thrown at me. My hair, they used to mess with my hair all the time. Have heard my name called. I've heard screams out, and I don't know, it's just these things. And then just with me, I don't know what it says about me, but the more it happened, the more curious I would get about it. And, so now I'm trying to go replicate that and see if it'll happen again. So trying to figure out what's going on in this building. And I still don't have any answers. I probably have more questions now than I ever did. But I always thought before I was open-minded, but I'm way more open-minded now than I was, 10 years ago.
Well, you actually went into our follow-up question about if you felt called. Do you want to go ahead and or felt called? Sorry. Do you want to go ahead and tell us about this awesome story that you have from St. Albans from working there?
Okay, sure, I will. All right, so this was 2014, and it was this particular night. This was later in the season. This was the actual Halloween weekend, and I was up on the. They had placed me up on a set up on the second floor hallway up above. It's called the King Center, and I don't know if you remember this, Jimmy, but you remember we went to the top of the grand staircase, and you go all the way around behind it, and it's a long hallway, went all the way down from one end all the way to the other. But in the middle, there was this open area where the rocker room was at. So my set was from the rocker room and then on down the hallway. And then I had another guy that was working. The idea was they come by and we jump out or do whatever. scare them, send them on their way downstairs. So we had been doing that. I'll tell you, the first night I was up there, I was scared to even go down the hallway. The hallway is a patient rooms on each side. And I was so scared of that building. I was scared to go in those dark rooms. Wow. Then, after a couple of nights, I got brave. There was the one room I felt comfortable in. I don't even know why, but I was like, okay, I'll do this one. And it was great because this room, the door from where vandals had been in there, was this big, huge hole knocked in the door. I mean, it was big enough I could stick my head through. And so I came up with this idea. I'd go in that room and shut the door, and I'd wait until the people would come down the hallway. Then I'd pop my head out through this hole and, say something crazy or, scream, make some kind of sound and scare them. And then I would fling the door open and run out and chase them down the hallway. And it worked great. And I start, the more you scare people, the more fun it gets.
Mm-hmm.
So then we get to the Halloween weekend, and my youngest daughter was going to come through the haunted house, and she had just started dating a new guy. We'd never met him. And so they were going to go up and come through that night. And so that's how my one son-in-law met me. I scared him in a haunted house. But they came down the hallway. It was getting close to closing time. It was probably about 30 minutes before we was due to close. And that night it was cold. It was raining. It was just just one of those kind of nights. Everybody coming through had on hats and jackets and stuff. So I'm standing there and I could hear a group coming. So I get ready with the door closed, and I hear the group coming, and I hear my daughter giggling. I recognized her giggles. So I was like, here we go. But before she came, she was telling me about, her boyfriend. A lot of people, they're like, that stuff's not scary and everything. And so she was like, Mama, you got to try to scare him. I just want to see him get scared. And I'm like, I'll try, So I hear him coming, and I'm looking through the hole in this door, and I see two young men walk by down the hallway, and behind them I see my daughter and then another girl. So it's like two couples, right? I wait for the guys to go through, and then I stuck my head through and did my thing, and they kind of kept walking. So then I flung the door open to go out, and of course my focus is on the guys. I'm not sure which one's her boyfriend. I know one of them is, and I'm going to go after him. So I go chasing him down the hall, and and I will say he did screech a little and kind of run backwards to get away. But to get to them, the hallway's not that wide. You've been in it, and I had to kind of slide and go around the two girls to get to them.
I don't even know how you did that as thin as the hallway is.
There's not a lot of room in there. And I tell you, learn to stay low and duck, because sometimes people, when they get scared, they don't mean to, but they'll unintentionally try to hit and stuff. So I learned to lay low and watch those hands, But anyway, I really had to swerve around them. And I went after the guys, and, anyway, got them all down the hallway, and my partner, John, set them down to go down the stairs. And so I walked down there. John knew my daughter was supposed to be coming. And so when I got there, they was starting down the stairs. And I told John, I said, that's my daughter there. And I said, not the one in the back. I said, but the other one that's laughing like a fool, just keeps giggling, because she was having a blast. She was laughing. The other girl didn't look like she was having fun, though. She looked bored the whole time coming through. She had her hoodie jacket on and pockets in the front. She just had her hands in the pockets and head down. Really no reaction of anything at all. So they start to go down the stairs. I turn around and go back down the hall. Well, my daughter come back around and hugged me, and she's like, you got him, Mama, and was laughing about it. Well, the girl was still behind her. So I'm hugging my daughter, and I wave at the girl, like, hi, I'm Heather's mom. And, then they kind of went on their way. So a couple of days later, it was on the Sunday, I was visiting with my daughter, and we were talking about them coming through the haunted house, and I'm asking them, did y'all like it? Did you enjoy yourselves? Did you have a good time? And and she was like, yeah, they did. And I was like, well, what about the other girl? I said, what happened? She didn't seem like she was enjoying herself. I hope she found something in there she enjoyed. And Heather's like, what girl? I don't know. Is it the other guy's other guy's girlfriend? I guess, I don't know. And she said, no, Mom, it was just the three of us. This other guy didn't have a girl with him. It was just the three of them. Now, at first I thought, is she trying to have fun with me? Because she already knew I was a little scared in that building, right? And I thought, she's having fun with me. And I was like, oh, okay. And when they really, what's her name? And she's like, no, there's nobody there but us. She said, the only people that she saw in that hallway, because first she's like, was there another group behind us? And I said, no, it wasn't a group. It was just y'all. And so she said the only people she had seen was her boyfriend, the guy that was with them, me, and then she says, and then the other two actors at the end of the hall, the guy and the lady. And I'm like, what lady? Well, she saw a grown woman dressed in a nurse's outfit that's like a long, sound like maybe from like the 90s or so because of the length of the skirt. But she said, she described her. She had auburn colored hair. She had this and that. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about either. So we're both sitting there looking at each other like, what are you talking about?
So
but she actually got so close to this woman, she had to squeeze around her. And she said they made eye contact. They smiled at each other. So I saw a young girl that stayed with Heather, and she saw a whole nother woman in the corner. So I don't know.
Okay.
So we both come out of there seeing people that weren't there.
Yeah. So you guys, I was going to ask if well, I knew this story, but I was going to ask if they, were similar looking, but it sounds like they were not. That part I did not know.
No, from our descriptions, it could have been this is two separate looking people, because what I saw was a, late teen, early 20 girl with a hoodie on and jeans, hoodie up over her head. And I couldn't really make out her face really well because it was just kind of shadowed in there. Couldn't tell you because she had that hood up, which was.
It's possible they could have been the same person.
I've thought that was just maybe we perceived her, in different ways, but I'm not sure where the girl I saw was at in relation to when what Heather saw when she saw. So I don't know, if it was if it could have been. I mean, it's possible, but we both left that conversation scratching our heads and going, what in the world went on here? So I contacted the security up there, and I'm like, I know I'm not crazy. I know I saw, I might be crazy, but I know I saw 4 people in this group. And, it's like, can y'all pull? Well, that hallway didn't have a camera right there. It went out on the other end of the hallway, so you couldn't really see anything there. And I'm like, I know there was a girl with y'all. But to this day, that was kind of the most disturbing thing, because forever after that, anytime I was worked in a haunted house and a group would come through, there's times I would wonder, is everybody that I'm seeing, everybody else seeing them? What's going on here?
Well, yeah,
but it was just really strange, because there was nothing at all about that girl that, other than she didn't look like she was really having a good time. She just looked like she was just kind of tagging along, which was that was the only really thing that, looking back, that was different about her. But otherwise, I mean, she looked just as real, just as solid, just as there as anybody else. And it just kind of just really blew my mind. And I was, so I was like, I'm pretty sure I saw. But the thing is, it stayed with my daughter. No matter where she went, this girl was behind her. So I don't know if so that's something we wondered too. Is it something, is it some kind of a protective spirit there with her? Or is just something, for whatever reason, lagged along behind her? But I do know when they left there that night, when going back home into Salem, she had a wreck that night.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah. No. She flipped her Jeep down there in Salem down River Road. Everybody was fine and everything, but it was just kind of added to the whole, did that have anything to do with it or what? And
wow. Oh.
So yeah, I was, and then I felt bad because I was like, I got her to come up there in the building, and did something follow her home, but she seemed to be fine. But she saw a nurse. It was, like 30s or so, and I saw a much younger girl in jeans and a striped hoodie.
Wow.
But she's talking about who she saw. She thought it was one of the actors, because she said she had makeup on. I said, what was she dressed like? And she said, well, she had makeup on. She said, not like costume makeup like we had, but just regular makeup. So, but since then, I've learned, I have a theory of who the nurse was, because there have been reports of a nurse that haunts there. And what I heard was the nurse committed suicide and that she haunts the place. But I don't think I've seen her, but I'm pretty sure I heard her up there before. She tends to come out when people are frightened or scared, and she's more of a calming, keeps you calm, which actually worked with me. 'Cause it makes sense that, because I don't know, one other night I was up there, I found myself up there alone in the hallway. And at that point, you couldn't have paid me money to go anywhere in that building by myself. I didn't know my way around. I didn't know anything about it. And of course, it's all decorated for haunted house. So, it's kind of creepy anyway. And it was our last night. And what we would do is, after we would close for the night, the actors from Major Graham's, where they have their haunted house, they like to, after they would close, they would come down and come through our house. And so we were close to the public, but we would wait for them to come down and come through. And so that's the point we were at. We were closed, and we had some time just to kill, waiting for them to get there. So I said, well, I'm going to run down, and take a little break. And I had like little teen actors up there. And I said, I'm going to leave my stuff here with y'all, because they were going to stay up there. And I ran downstairs, and then I come back up, and I get up there, and I go around the corner, and I notice it's eerie quiet. There's none of the sounds on. It's just the little low lights and the fog, and it's really quiet. So immediately I'm scared, because, oh no, I'm up here by myself, and there's nobody to help me if something comes to gets me. And so I had time to register. I'm scared. I want to get my stuff, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to go in there or not. And then I start hearing this lady singing. And I thought, oh, there's somebody up here. Let me go find them so I'm not alone. So I go walking, and let me tell you, I walked all the way down from my end of the hall, all the way down to where the grand staircase is, and all the way back. And the whole way I heard that singing, but she never got any closer or any farther away. It was just the same. So I ended up just stopping in the hallway and trying to figure out what she was singing. And I did. I got so focused on her, I forgot to be scared anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was standing there listening to this singing, and then one of the other volunteers come up looking for me, because we were going to have a meeting. And as soon as she come up the steps and come around the corner, the singing stopped. I tell you, I grabbed my stuff and I skedaddled down them stairs. But I think that I might have heard this woman singing up there, but I know I heard somebody singing. There was nobody up there. It was so eerie. But so I think that might have been who she saw.
I think I've heard of people seeing that nurse. Other people.
I want to say, I could be wrong. I have heard other people say that they've seen her, and I want to say that somebody told me her name was Elizabeth, but I'm not really sure about that.
It sounds real familiar.
But one of the other, it was another person that was a volunteer at the time, coordinate the volunteers. We were talking about it, and she's like, yeah, that's all. She said, that's the nurse. She says, were you scared? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, that's why she showed up. She said, she showed up to soothe you, make you feel better. And I thought about it, and I said, it worked, because it got me focused on something else. And so I kind of forgot to be scared for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But I still didn't want to be by myself anywhere in that building for a bit. But yeah, that whole hallway up there, actually the whole King Center, I think is, in my opinion, the most active areas. I've had the most interesting. And it's so sad, because that second floor hallway, a lot of people don't investigate up there. And I always try to encourage people, because they'll hit the main places, the Jacob's room, the alcoholics ward, all the big name places. But you've got this hall, there's areas with these rooms. And I tell you, I believe that second floor hallway is definitely one of the most active places. I've had most of my stories and encounters have been up in that area.
Well, I don't know if you remember the flashlight experience I had. That's where
I do.
I don't know if you remember.
Was it on that hall, or was it? I was thinking that was down around the electroshock therapy area, down in the basement somewhere.
You're right. It was in the basement.
Yeah.
Because I
remember that you did.
Place. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very dark in there. And I think you said something about your flashlight and your batteries and all that. I think I probably said welcome to St. Albans, because that's one of the most common things in that place is the batteries will just drain. Like, I've actually had my phone drop down to like practically zero from like 90 something. Then I get off the property and it's fine again. So I don't know. It's things are weird in that building.
Yeah. And then Uh, the next question I was going to ask was, have you heard of anyone else seeing that same younger girl? I mean, we talked about the nurse, but what about the young girl? We did talk about
Not that I know of, but I mean, it's possible, but I've never spoke to anyone. That's like, I saw that girl too. So I mean, I don't know. There's so many different things in there, and I honestly think that some of the things that are in there maybe did not originate from that building. I think over the years, other things have like come and gone. I know when I was first there was a whole lot more. You would see down in the King Center, down in that hallway, it was broad daylight, and I was going through there, and I swear I saw what looked like little kids peeking around the doorway. I used to see what looked like little, like just little shadows like dart off, but they were little short ones. And at some point, I don't think I've seen one of them in a long time. I mean, many years. So I don't know what happened with that, but some things we can pretty much pinpoint that originated from the building. But I mean, really anything could just come and go through there, I think, especially with people come in and investigate, and it kind of opens things up more. Maybe they might follow people in there too. So, but I don't think I've never heard of anybody that has had the exact experience like me that thought she was, anything like that. I mean, it's possible, but I really don't know.
And then I was going to ask if you heard of anything, like any kind of records, like about a young girl being a patient there or anything. That nurse that you talked about, I actually had heard about a nurse that, like in the 80s or 90s, that something happened to there. It happened there.
And I think it could have been because the way Heather described her nurse outfit, the length of her skirt, like that 3/4 length, that was kind of, back then. They were still wearing, a lot of times wearing the skirts. It just made me think of that. But she said that she didn't look like old timey or anything, but she did remark that she had on a longer skirt, not like ankle length, but below the knees. And a sweater. She said she had a sweater around her
Yeah, they
shoulders.
had like a navy blue sweater or something. Yeah, my mom.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to tell her about that, because that was just such a detail. She said, yes, she had a sweater around her. Wow. So
yeah,
I have to tell
my
Heather
mom
that
worked there. That's the outfit that she wore. I mean, I would have asked my mom about that, but you know how I told you how she is. So she won't even listen to me. Yeah.
Some people don't want no part of it. That's true. Yeah.
No. So oh yeah, there's only one question left.
We lost Jarrett.
Yeah, he texted me. His internet went out, but I figured we'd just keep going on trucking.
All right.
Why not? We've gotten this far. Why start over?
Right.
So, have you experienced any other kind of unexplained phenomena other than spirits? A lot of times, I hear that people have experienced multiple things. I don't know if I've told you, but I may have experienced spirits in my lifetime and a UFO.
I've experienced, well, my whole family, there was 4 of us. I actually came and got my husband out of bed one night so he could come witness this. It was me, that same daughter, Heather. We were here, and my oldest grandson. We were sitting out in my driveway. The International Space Station was supposed to fly over. And so we're going to sit out there. And this was been probably 10 years ago at least. Actually, probably a little longer. It was before I was at St. Albans. But so we were sitting out in my driveway, waiting to see the space station fly over. Now, I'm a big space geek. I have a telescope. I mean, I love to just go out there and,
I do too.
And look. So, I know what's normal. Well, I was watching and I seen something like this was in the northern sky. I go over, and my first thought was it was a satellite. And I thought, well, that's an odd satellite. I've never seen one go in that direction, that particular, because satellites, they have the same pattern. You can almost set your clock by when they're going to come around. And I noticed that, and as I'm watching it, it stopped. And then it shot in reverse direction, went back. And then it started doing all these like circles and like pendulum movements. It reminded me, I'll tell you what it reminded me of. If you've ever seen a male hummingbird when they're showing off with the female hummingbirds and they'll do all those crazy that's what this was doing in the sky, but it looked like a star. And I thought, my eyes is gone wonky. So I said, I just kind of pointed, I said, Heather, look up there. I said, do you see anything up there? And she was looking, and then both of them noticed it. So we sat there watching it, and it would like stop and then like shoot off really quick and then reverse direction and come back. I don't know what it was. I come in here and I got my husband up, made him go out and look. He saw it. And then it's like it gave us a show and then it went on. And to me, it's a UFO because I certainly can't identify what it was. And so I found that intriguing. But as far as like at St. Albans, only thing I don't even know if it's spiritual or not, but that same year, that first year up there in that second floor hallway, I was in that room where I would hide out in, and I was waiting for the group to come down and get to my area. And the room across from where I was standing in, the door was pulled closed, but not all the way. It was open, probably about 6 or 8 inches. So I'm standing there just looking through the hole, kind of just staring down, waiting, And out of this doorway come this ball of light. It looked like a sparkler, like for 4th of July sparkler, but if it's condensed down into like a ball, and it was like the size of a grapefruit. It was a pretty good size, and it put out its own light, but it was about maybe a foot or so off the ground, but it came out of that doorway, come out into the hall, and I'm standing looking at it like, what on earth am I looking at? And then it stopped, and we just kind of like, I like to tell people, I felt like in that M&M's commercial at Christmas time where Santa's there and they both faint because they do exist. That's exactly what I felt like. Yeah. These things do exist. And, but it kind of, it was kind of there for a moment, and then heard people coming, and then it shot off down the hallway. And I thought, well, that was weird. What is that? And I think you said it could be something called will-o-the-wisp, which it could be. But then at another time, I want to say maybe a year or so later, but it was in the summertime, is me and a couple other volunteers were in the building doing some work. And this was out in the connector hall, a little room off the connector hall. And it looked like coming out of the wall. It looked like they was coming out of the wall, but they were much smaller, but they were like sparklers like that, but they were kind of more of an amber color. But it was like they were just coming out the wall and floating off. And the 3 of us was standing there looking at it. And I was like, we're all hallucinating in here. I was like, it must be the mold in here or something, because we were all seeing this. That's the only time I've seen anything like that. I don't know what they were. But it was, I'm telling you, the building's odd. You stay in there long enough, you will see some of the strangest things. And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know what the answers are.
Yeah, some of these we should go back and try and record for more stories from you sometime soon.
I'll tell you, I got all kinds of them. 8 years up in there, and it's just, I got a whole night of stories I could tell you on one thing. It would be like a chapter book. It's a saga. An entire night.
We can get them from you one at a time till the end of time, I guess, if you want. Who knows? Maybe you'll.
I think it's just spending so much time in there that it just I don't know. It's so weird because you get to the point. I've had people before. At one point, people was like, "Man, what's it like being in there?" And it's scary. And and it dawned on me. You get in there and you get. It sounds weird, but you kind of get used to it. So like simple things like footsteps and stuff. You're like, oh, it's just it's like it's almost expected. And it's like, well, that sounds strange, but it's like you just experience that so much that sometimes don't even faze you anymore.
Wow. Well, hopefully you'll also get some stories from Engles Castle.
I hope so.
That would be.
We're really hoping to save that place. That would be amazing. I mean, we was there 2 hours one afternoon, and look at there. we had an experience.
Got 3 or 4 experiences. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's not more. Yeah, I'm excited to get to see.
Somebody just found a new one just a couple days ago in the video.
Yeah.
So
So I was thinking maybe I need to just really sit down and go through and really go through it like you didn't investigate, but maybe go through the audio and stuff and really look close and see. Because I couldn't believe that one from the other day. We had never heard that before.
That was shocking.
And it's plain as day. Now, my husband listened to it and he said to him it almost sounded like something was like mocking you or something, because I think you had made some kind of a sound before that. And I said, well, yeah, I could see that too, but it had to have been something right there on you because, the mics weren't working well that day. And whatever it was had to have been right there on you to have been picked up that clearly.
And it didn't sound like me.
No, it didn't sound like you. It sounded like something was, yeah, that's what I thought it sounded female. So, I don't know.
So for those that don't know, Julie is going to, I guess, be leading the whole haunted Engles Castle attraction.
Oh no, I can't take all the credit by myself. There's a group of us. I'm actually the Jonnie come lately. There's several that's been there ahead of me, been trying to help the owner. It's actually still part of the Engles, descendants of the Engles family. Mm-hmm. We're making plans. We definitely have some things coming up for October. I'm not sure at this point how much will be paranormal related. I'm not sure how comfortable the owner is with that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think they're like quite religious and everything, and they have, and I can see their point in a way, because what you really don't want is people to come in there, because the more people come in there and do that stuff, sometimes it'll, we don't want it to turn into, it's got kind of a good vibe right now and a good feel. I definitely feel like there's a female in that house, but she felt welcoming to me. I don't know about that back staircase. I felt like I was somewhere I didn't belong, and I got out of there real quick.
And off about that.
Yeah, that's the only place in that entire property that I had a feeling like, and I did. I felt like I was somewhere I didn't belong, and I got down those steps, and I was trying to find y'all, and I was looking for y'all, and I went down. I thought I'm gonna go down those stairs, and I would really like to put a recorder or something in there, and just to see, what happens. But yeah, that's just something we're still kind of working on. It's, it's nothing definitive yet, but he doesn't, I think he's open to having like groups come in and maybe have retreats and stuff like that. But right now, I don't think, he doesn't seem like he's real super comfortable with, like just people coming in, and, have to kind of sit down, come up with some rules and stuff that he would be happy with. It's really up, it's really up to the owner. But we're definitely going to be having tours at some point, and we want to, we want the place to be, a big part of the community. And it's just, how do we get there from here? Mm-hmm. And right now she needs a roof, so that's our number one goal, is to we're planning fundraisers to raise the funds for a roof. It's a slate roof, and it's going to be a lot of money to replace it. Mm. So yeah, there's we have a school teacher who's a history teacher, and his wife, she's a photographer and an artist, and I think she teaches too, but I'm not sure about that. And then there's another young fellow who's local. He's an architect, and he's been working with the owner for a few years with some of the restorations they had already done. Mm-hmm. And then there's another lady. She's into the historical stuff, and we've had meetings with several other people that are basically in the same situation. They have property that's been handed down for hundreds of years, and trying to find ways, to adapt it to a modern society and preserve these places so that they don't, come in, nobody comes in and tears them down, and mm-hmm. And then you lose them to history, because especially with that Engles stuff, it's such a big part of the history of that area, mm-hmm. that family, with the ferry and all that and stuff. And so yeah, we got our work cut out for us, I think, but it's not, I'm excited. I'll tell you, I'm going to be happy when the day I can pull up in there and see a crew up on the roof fixing the roof. Mm-hmm. But we've got some good plans coming up. Nothing I can really put out there publicly yet.
Okay.
But stay tuned.
Well,
Stay tuned.
thanks. Yeah. Well, thanks a ton for coming on and share and letting us interview you and share all this stuff. And well, Jared says he's sorry that he got his internet went out, but I think it still
Dang,
went
Jared, we
fine.
missed you, man.
Yeah, I think it all went fine. Um,
I
and
think so.
and
It seemed like
thanks
there was
again.
something.
No, I think we went
You're
through
welcome.
everything.
Thanks for having me. I was a little nervous because, I mean, like you interviewed me before, but it was just over the
Yeah.
phone.
Well, I mean, it was more of a just tell your story type thing, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah.
first ever interview. Hope you guys liked it. Let us know what you think in the comments, and make sure to like, subscribe, and share it out. Thanks again, Julie.
Thank you for having me. Y'all take care.
Hey, folks, welcome to Spooky Appalachia. I'm your host, Jimmy. This week we have a story from a fan who sent us the amazing Hindenburg Manor story that we covered a while back. This time she sent us a story about a strange incident she had with her shift sergeant while working as a 911 dispatcher for her local sheriff's department. It happened in Lynn County, Iowa, back in September of 2018. I was working as a dispatcher for our local county sheriff's office. I got a call from someone stating that their relative who was undergoing cancer treatment had stopped answering the door and their mail had begun piling up. I put out the call and the shift sergeant stated that he would go since he would likely have to anyway, it being a DOA. Um, When he arrived at the house, he radioed in saying that he had seen someone pull back half the drapes with their hand and was peering out the window. After making entry, he discovered that the individual had been deceased and was located in the bedroom, which was the same one that he saw someone look out of. After clearing the house, it was deemed empty other than the deceased individual. Once the sergeant got back to dispatch, I jokingly asked, "What'd you see in the window? A ghost?" He said, "I sure saw something." Big thanks to the fan who sent this in. Again, that's two awesome stories she sent us now. Um, she's actually been telling some stories on Instagram, but her main focus is Bigfoot research. You can find her at Midwest Bigfoot on Instagram. Um, this kind of reminded me of the lady in the window from Engles Castle, which we just did. There's a lot of ghosts of old ladies looking out windows, isn't there? I mean, it makes you wonder if all those old ladies you see looking out windows are ghosts. You don't know, I guess. It's hard to say. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, Midwest Bigfoot. Thank you again for sending us stories. And the both of them that you sent. And remember, if you've got a story or any kind of paranormal encounter or sighting story you want to send in, you can do that using our Google form. You can also email us at spookyappalachia@gmail.com. Big thank you to our Patreons, Alvin, Adam, Charles, Danielle, Donald, Jeff, Jordan, Julia, Linda, Shannon, Taylor, and Werewolf Radar Podcast. I just went on as a guest on there. We had a blast. Go check those guys out. And yeah, let me know what you think of me running this solo. Do you like it? Should I try to find a co-host? Maybe we should try this out for a while. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what works and whatever you guys like. Let me know in the comments what you think. Hey, folks, welcome to Spooky Appalachia. I'm your host, Jimmy. You might have noticed I'm wearing this really cool shirt from the old hospital on College Hill. It's in Williamson, West Virginia. we just went this past weekend and did some filming there for one of our spooky sightseeing videos. We'll actually have two videos. One could already be out by the time you're seeing this, but we're hoping to have two videos. Be sure to check them out. And the old hospital on College Hill, it was an amazing place. We found out about it on Destination Fear, so it's getting famous. Check them out. Show them your support and love. So for this week's story, we have one sent in by a fan who had a couple of freaky and uncomfortable encounters with a spirit back in March of 2023. So it's a recent one, and well, here it is. So, nothing was sighted, but something was felt. My boyfriend at the time had a less than friendly spiritual attachment that I believe laid in bed with me. This is 100% real and not falsified or exaggerated in any way. I was laying in bed in a hotel room just outside of Washington, D.C. on a school trip. The two people in the room with me, we shall call E and A for privacy reasons. E slept in the bed beside mine, and A was asleep on an air mattress in the corner of the room. Our curtain was drawn, and all the lights were out. I laid in bed with my laptop on my legs, writing my book. I remember it clear as day, the words I was writing and everything. I felt the warmth and weight of an arm come around my shoulder. While I was alone in bed, it felt so real to me that I leaned in a bit further. I felt the shoulder of an arm around me, then gasped and realized there was no one there. It took me a few days to fully shake off the feeling of fear that began to linger after my encounter. I had never experienced anything like that in my entire life before. 2 days later, I was sitting in the CVS parking lot on the way back home, waiting for my dad to pick up some chocolate. I felt it again. It felt lighter this time, more gentle. And instead of coming around me, it just rested softly on my shoulders. My boyfriend at the time worked in a nearby haunted sanitarium and had many spiritual encounters. I called him and asked what the heck it could have been, and we settled on residual energy from him being around me all day for 3 days straight. But something about that night still didn't feel right to me. Another interesting thing is my boyfriend, who we'll call G at the time, was a witch along with his mother. Without exposing any personal information, he's had a negative attachment since childhood. He and the boys in the hotel room with him, I'll call I and R, experienced things that same night. Three knocks clear as day on the second floor window, no balconies in the hotel. They've never gone into detail about the things they saw that night, but they definitely all experienced something. R took a picture of what was there, but I lost the image. I'll leave their stories to be told at their will, but an image captured a figure by the bathroom. The wall behind it was blank and there were no lamps. And on that side of the room, they couldn't have mistaken it for anything but the figure. I still think about that night, although I no longer speak to the group. I'm sure it hasn't left their minds. Wow, that's something else. It kind of reminded me of that story we had a while back. It was tucked in by a spirit. I mean, this didn't sound like it was something evil or less than friendly. She said something about a less than friendly spiritual attachment. I don't know. I mean, it didn't seem like it was trying to cause any harm, but yeah, it reminded me of that tucked in by a spirit. It almost sounded like to me it was like trying to comfort her. Um, it's really hard to say. Definitely a good story, and big thank you for sending that in.
Hey, folks, this is Jimmy, and I'm joined with Jared today from Jared King TV.
Hey, folks.
And welcome to Spooky Appalachia. If you can't tell, I'm recovering from a pretty bad sinus infection, so Jared's going to do the reading today. I mean, I couldn't think of a better storyteller to kind of take my place.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor.
All right, for today's story, my friend and author Dewey Edwards sent in one of his personal stories from from his childhood. It's a really great story, and I think you'll love it. And Jared, if you'll take us away for this story,
Absolutely.
I will go on mute so you guys don't hear me coughing.
In early 1971, I had a close friend who we all called Bubba. Bubba wasn't his real name, but all his family and friends called him that. And Bubba was a special friend, you see. Bubba had muscular dystrophy and had been confined to a wheelchair for many years. Sadly, I first met Bubba during the last year of his life, although I had gone to school with his sister since the first grade. Bubba and his family was big into Citizens Band radios and had been for many years. In fact, my very first conversation with Bubba was over a cheap old walkie-talkie that we had rigged up with an oversized antenna. Walkie-talkies weren't supposed to talk that far, which was about 3 miles. But I guess fate played a hand in Bubba and I talking that day. I don't have any other explanation. Anyway, after an initial contact, Bubba and I became close friends. I went to see him several times a week and was always amazed at his cheery disposition, despite his physical handicaps. His radio knobs had been replaced with T-handles so his gnarly little fingers could manipulate them as he switched through the frequencies while he seated in his wheelchair. Bubba was an inspiration to all who knew him and had friends all over the world. A few months into our friendship, Bubba was hospitalized with bronchial pneumonia, which was very dangerous for his physical condition. His prognosis was not good, and Bubba got worse with each passing day. One night at work, I got the dreaded phone call telling me Bubba was about to pass, and if I wanted to see him alive, I had better get to the hospital quickly. I made it in time, and Bubba drew his last breath while I stood by his side, holding his hand. A couple of days later, he was laid to rest in Memorial Gardens in Springfield. Bubba's parents asked my dad if we had anywhere they could store Bubba's wheelchair, as it held too many painful memories for them to even look at, sitting empty at his radio desk. Daddy picked it up and brought it to our house, storing it in an unused bedroom upstairs, which was addressed by a stairway behind the door in my bedroom. We thought nothing more about it until that night. I went to bed as usual, and about the time I got settled in good, the door to my bedroom flew open, and a cold breeze filled the room. At this point, I just thought the wind was to blame. As I started to get up and close the door, something sat down on my side of the bed. Thinking it was my brother walking in his sleep, I took my foot and attempted to boot him off the bed. But to my surprise, there was nothing there. I looked at the side of the bed and saw an impression of someone sitting there, but there was no one there that I could see. I attempted to scream, but I was too terrified to make a sound. I hid my head under the covers, unable to move. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, which in reality was probably only a matter of minutes, whoever or whatever it was got up from my bed. I could hear the floorboards creaking as it made its way across the floor towards my brother's bed, where it again sat down. I managed to force my eyes open, and I could see the same impression on the side of his bed. His head was also under the covers. I do not know exactly how long it sat there, but a short time later it moved from the bed and made its way toward the stairway door, knocking down the ladder to the top bunk bed where my youngest brother lay sleeping. What happened next was the most terrifying. Whatever this entity was, it evidently wanted to get upstairs in the worst way. It scratched on the door to the stairway for several minutes while I lay frozen, terrified in my bed, unable to move. The noise awoke my youngest brother, and he began crying. After that, my brother and I found our voices, and we joined in. Daddy came running into the room, and we told him what had happened. We slept in their room for the remainder of the night. Next door to us lived an old man named Jonnie Ford. We kids called him Uncle Jonnie, as was the common practice at that time. Every morning he was up before daybreak and feeding his livestock. As Daddy went out to the car to go to work that morning, he saw Uncle Jonnie at the barn. And during the conversation, the subject of the previous night come up. Daddy told him what we had witnessed, expecting him to laugh at such a tall tale. Instead, Uncle Jonnie was dead serious as he told Daddy what we needed to do. He said, "That boy's spirit is attached to that wheelchair and is trying to get back to it. What you need to do is leave that door open so his spirit can get back to that wheelchair. Trust me, if you don't, that boy's ghost will haunt you from now on." We decided to do what Uncle Jonnie said, and that night, we propped the stairway door open. All was quiet, and nothing happened until we went to bed. About that time, I thought nothing was going to happen. The bedroom door abruptly opened, and the temperature in the room dropped. And it dropped dramatically, as whatever it was came into the room. Again, I was terrified. This time, though, it didn't sit on my bed. I could hear it and sense it as it stood by the side of my bed, as if telling me goodbye. After a moment, I heard it cross the floor and make its way to my brother's bed, where it again stood for a short while. As it moved toward the stairway door, it brushed against the bed and bunk bed ladder and moved it. Only this time it didn't fall. The floorboards creaked and popped as it made its way to the stairway. As it climbed the stairs, each stair step creaked and moaned as the entity slowly made its way up the stairs, then into the back of the room where the wheelchair was waiting. If this was the spirit of Bubba, evidently it found what it was looking for we never experienced anything further, at least not for several years anyway. A couple of years later, my parents moved and took the wheelchair with them, storing it in an old building by the house. One day, my brother Timmy and Nathan and my nephew got the wheelchair out and took turns pushing each other around the yard in it. That night, both of them had the same exact nightmare about something chasing them in the wheelchair. A few years later, my parents moved to Oakland Road and again took the wheelchair with them, placing it in a small storage building behind the house. It was forgotten about until one day, Gary, one of the neighbor's kids, found it and dragged it out. Evidently forgetting about what happened earlier, Timmy and Gary pushed each other around in it and even got it out on the highway and rode it down the hill in front of the house. Again, both of them had frightening nightmares that night. And afterwards, neither of them would go anywhere near their wheelchair, claiming it was haunted. The last time I saw it was folded up in the back of an old building. After my father passed away, my mother sold the house and moved to town. But this time the wheelchair did not go. I'm not sure exactly where it is now, and I really don't care to find out.
Wow, that was a great story, wasn't it?
That was, man. That was one of them it's kind of a rare gem. You know, you get one of those it's kind of spooky, but at the same time, you know, it kind of touches your heart.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of those rare gems right there. I really enjoyed that one.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you enjoyed this story, make sure to look up Dewey Edwards on Amazon. He's got several amazing books. He's done some about personal experiences, like and the I can't think of it, the Bell Witch. He's done
Oh,
a lot of
wow.
research into the Bell Witch.
Dang.
So he's definitely got some interesting ones. Let's see if I can read the rest of it. All right. So remember, if you've had a paranormal encounter, you can send it in to us using our Google form, or you can email it to spookyappalachia@gmail.com. Thank you to our Patreons, Adam, Alvin, Charles, Chris, Danielle, Donald, Jeff, Jordan, Jonnie. She says it's Johnny. Pronounce it Johnny. And see, I didn't list that in the list of Patreon, so I need to go figure out what's going on there. But then there's Linda, Taylor, and our content creator Patreons, our very own Jared King TV. Go check him out. And
Thanks
big
so
thanks
much.
for hopping in and doing this. There's no way I could have read all this today.
Like I said, it's always an honor to be here, man. Help out.
Then there's Scott, who's an author. I've got a link to his link tree, and Werewolf Radar podcast. They're a paranormal comedy podcast. Good gosh, I'm losing my voice. And yeah, if you like this story, be sure to share it out, subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff. Help us grow.
Absolutely, folks.
We're
And be
almost,
sure to smash that like button and let
yeah,
us know what you thought of this story.
definitely. Hey, folks, welcome to Spooky Appalachia. I hope y'all have been enjoying these ghost and haint stories this month. We got another one sent in by a fan. One of our Patreons, Linda, sent us a really good one that I'm going to share with you all today. And yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and get into it. It's about an experience she had at the Waterbury Asylum of the Insane. Also, since you guys enjoyed the Appalachian Witch video so much, I'll see if I can recreate the voice I used. I actually had a cold when I read that. We'll see how it goes. Hello, Jimmy. I'm sorry that I haven't had time to write with my experiences lately, but I wanted to get one to you after sharing the Williamson Hospital video that you guys filmed. In Waterbury, Vermont, there was a large complex of a building that was used to be the Waterbury Asylum of the Insane. It was built in 1891 and is considered a historical landmark, especially since it's a Victorian, especially for its Victorian architecture. It has a dark and morbid past. It was used to house the criminally insane, people with depression, epilepsy, and salinity, along with the criminally insane. It opened a woman's wing where the women were forced into sterilization. So you get the picture. Eventually, the hospital was closed and it became state offices. I had to bring some paperwork to these offices in either 2008 or 2009. The only way to get to the office that I needed to get to was to take the elevator to the basement, walk the entire length of the building underground, and take an elevator up to the offices. As I stepped off the elevator in the basement, I could feel a wall of the most frightening feelings, pain, sorrow of the deepest kind, rage, terror, and insanity. I had to walk this gauntlet, and then I saw them. It was a huge open underground space filled with shadows of human beings screaming, running, curled up in corners, withering on the floor, swaying and moaning. I was terrified. I began to run, and I could feel them behind me. The lighting was dim, and I saw two small rooms used to contain uncontrollable people. Recesses filled with blackest black stairways leading nowhere, encased in cages. I made it to the elevator and to the office. I asked for another way out of the building, but was told there was none. I demanded that someone walk back with me, using a lame excuse. The return trip was to the same, but I stayed close to this woman who seemed to be clueless and also irritated with me. When I emerged, I ran to the parking lot and became ill. I was actually quite ill for over a week. Weak feeling, drained, and not able to eat, not able to work. I vowed to never go to that place again. A month later, my best friend Arlene told me that she had to go to the state offices with some paperwork. They never let you mail it. I knew that she was sensitive like me, and although I had made a vow that I would not let her go alone, and yes, I went through it again, holding my best friend's hand, as she too also experienced this terror. After we left, we were both ill and felt incredible despair, hopelessness of abandoned people who now lived eternally as the shadows in a giant, dimly lit basement. People who were literally tortured or tortured themselves in a call of insanity. No, I have never gone back, and neither has my friend, and I highly recommend that you don't go either. And so, Jimmy, this is my experience at Waterbury Asylum of the Insane. Thank you for letting me share my story. Wow, Linda, thank you. This was an incredible story. I'm sorry you had to go through all that, but it was definitely a great story. I really enjoyed it. Let me know if you guys liked that way of reading. It's a little taxing on my throat. I have a hard time doing long stories with it, but if you all like me reading it that way, I'll try to keep on doing it that way. Yeah, just let me know in the comments what you think. Remember, if you've had a story like this or something that's happened to you, you can send it to me using the Google form in the description, and you can also email it at you can send that to spookyappalachia@gmail.com. Hey, folks, welcome to Spooky Appalachia. This week we've got a story from a fan, and since you all have liked these when these folks come on and tell their stories so much, she agreed to come on and tell the story for us.
Hey, hi, I'm Moth Mistress. How are y'all?
So, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I'm excited to actually tell it because I
Yeah.
definitely haven't outside of a couple friends. But yeah,
Okay.
thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm excited to hear it. And it also happened in an interesting location.
Yes.
Lawrence, Kansas, for all you supernatural fans out there. I pointed that out to her and she said, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, both of my ghost encounters, if you will, have took place in the same house in Lawrence, Kansas.
Funny coincidence
Hmm.
with the show and all. But yeah, well, I guess if you want to dive into this story,
Sure, yeah, I can.
yeah, go
I
ahead.
can do that. I should probably start by saying that before this, I was definitely a skeptic. Like, I enjoyed the ghost adventures and having a good old time and looking at stuff. So, but I definitely wasn't, at that point, anything I was like, ha, oh, that's cool, and that would kind of move on. But I was living in a house with a bunch of people, and they had this cat named Jimmy, this little black cat. Yeah, I thought you might like that.
Yeah.
Uh, so he was, very cute, obviously. But it was just like, it could have been any old day. We were all in the living room watching TV, and I got up to use the bathroom. And when I went into the bathroom, the shower curtain was pulled across and everything, but I could hear Jimmy in the bathtub. I could hear the cat moving around, and he would make these little noises. So I could hear that, and the curtain was jerking back and forth. And so I was like, Jimmy, get out of the tub. And I pushed the curtain aside. And at the same time, as I looked down in the tub, I heard one of the people in the living room go, Jimmy's on my lap. And there was nothing in the tub. There was absolutely nothing. No cat, no animal of any kind. And because it had been so nonchalant almost, nothing, no figure, anything, it's a cat, it still left me immediately, I felt my stomach sink into my toes, and I was just staring at empty space that's impossible. That's I heard the cat. I saw the curtain move, not just move subtly either, like something was running into it and moving it. So definitely, I to this day I'm like, no, that happened. I saw that. There's no explanation for it. The cat was on her lap when I walked back into the living room, or I think I ran back into the living room. But yeah, so my first ghost experience was a little cat named Jimmy, but it wasn't. And they were like, oh, who knows what it was? They were really like, oh, it was probably just our old cat, oh, it haunts our house.
Huh. So had they seen or had any experiences with the old cat?
Well, yeah, apparently they had a little tannish cat before that, and it had passed away in the house. And so they were they were believers. Of course, it's worth mentioning that my second ghost experience was also in that house, and it was way more prominent and led me to understand why they were so, why they believed so much, because the second one was just more profound, and definitely thinking back on it. And that story is actually already up on Spooky Appalachia. It is the other Lawrence, Kansas video.
You know, we should. Well, I should have you come on and tell that one day. I think that would be, kind of like as a remaster and a retelling, straight from the. That'd be kind of cool. Do you remember what it was called? What I called it? I don't.
Gosh, off the top of my head,
It's been a while.
Was it? I think it was Tucked In by a Spirit.
It was something like that. You were having migraines and had a visit from, I think, an elderly family member of theirs.
Yeah, and they were just as nonchalant then as they were the first time. Just like, oh yeah, totally, that makes sense. I don't know if that speaks to them, the house, or Lawrence, Kansas in general. Wonderful town. I should say that for you supernatural fans. It's a great town. Kansas has nothing else, but it's a great town. Sorry if you're from Kansas. You understand, though.
I wonder if we do have any fans from Kansas. Oh, what I was going to ask you was what made you think it was the spirit of a cat in the tub? I heard it. I heard it was making cat sound. I thought it was the cat. I thought it was making those little the little growls that they make, the little just before they're gonna hiss or something. But that's the noise that this cat Jimmy would make, and so I thought for sure that's just what it was. The little sounds of the pads on the bottom of the tub. Okay. That makes sense then.
And then no, it's just nothing. And it's, that's fine. I can handle that. But yeah, it was definitely the first thing that made me go, okay, so this is how people feel when they're like, no, I saw this. You can call me crazy, whatever you want to do, but I know what I saw. I know what I heard.
Oh, that I think you mentioned, was this your first experience? That was your first experience. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Kitty was the first, and then it upped the ante.
Now, I've actually got a friend who says that his deceased cats roam around his house. He's in Hurricane, West Virginia, I believe. Mm-hmm. So it's not unheard of. It happens to a lot of people. And then we've got a story from that Engles Castle place that we filmed, where someone was seeing cats just appear and disappear in a field there.
I mean, it would not surprise me. Animals have, such bright personalities and character, and they're so good. They're just always, just such good. They help us. They're our pets. They're what matter to us in our lives sometimes. And I think that connection that they make maybe might just be the thing that either keeps them tethered to us in some way, or just the memories are just powerful enough. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Now, the only time I think it's really scary or possibly associated with a bad thing is those black dog ghosts. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, with the red eyes.
Oh, yeah. And there's always foreboding omens.
Yeah, they're all over the place around, or there's stories of them all over the place around here. I don't know if you'd ever heard of them, but I think sometimes they're like guardians of graveyards, and
there's something taking a familiar shape.
Yep.
Just something to lure people. Be like, oh, look, it's just a dog. It's fine.
So yeah,
that's a whole other kit and caboodle.
Yep. That is a whole nother thing. Maybe we'll do a story on those one day.
Yeah, also covered by Spooky Appalachia. That's the best part. If it's spooky, we're into it. We're doing it.
Yep. Yep. And not just in Appalachia, we've
Mm-hmm.
branched out. Well, thank you for telling your story. And I'd like to remind anyone listening or watching or both that you can send in a story just like this. Hey, folks, welcome to Spooky Appalachia. Joining me today is our friend Julie.
Hello, how is everybody?
She's joining us again today. As you all may know, she's been on here several times. She's got a pretty awesome story that happened to her in Blacksburg, Virginia, back in, we think it's 2002, I believe.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
And if you've been following, we've had a couple. Let's see. We filmed a couple locations in Blacksburg, Virginia, the Alexander House and the Lyric. And now we've got a story from Blacksburg. So definitely would love to get some stories from Blacksburg. There's the town of Blacksburg. I forget what the name of the company is, but they're doing that a ghost tour, and any stories from Blacksburg, Virginia, I'll send over to them, and they can use it for their ghost tour next year. They used some this year, but they're doing it again next year too. Well, Julie, do you want to share that awesome story with us?
Sure. Okay, so I was delivering mail in Blacksburg, and this was in approximately 2002 or so. I can't remember which year exactly, but it was somewhere in the early 2000s. Anyway, I was carrying mail on a downtown route, right there on Main Street, and the route was divided into different sections called walking loops, which is where you would have designated areas, and you would, park the postal vehicle and then get out and, and walk a loop around, a big circle around, and make deliveries, and then end up back at your vehicle and then move on to the next walking loop. So anyway, it's divided into different sections, the walking loops. And this particular loop, we would park at what was at the time a bookstore for Virginia Tech. And it was located on the corner right across Main Street from a church building. I think it was originally a Presbyterian church in Blacksburg, but it now houses the Cabo Fish House. But at that time, it was a bar in this old church. And now that particular loop would loop down Main Street and then go across Main Street and go up. There's a kind of a block or two down, called Roanoke Street, if anybody's familiar with the area. And then you go up about a block or so and then hang a right and go for about another block down Church. Anyway, basically we just make a big loop around, come down. This little church building would sit on the corner of Main Street and Lee Street. So we'd come down Lee Street for about a block so back down to the Main Street. And this church building would be the last stop. So basically I would make one big loop behind where Cabo is and then come down Lee Street. Back then, in the back part of the parking lot of what's now the Cabo Fish, kind of in between Cabo and what's now the Blacksburg Tavern, there was this tiny little white building that once housed a taxi cab company. But in the early 2000s, it served, as an office to the bar. That was where Cabo is now. On the front of this little building by the front door was where the mailbox for the bar and for the lady who ran the bar was located. Now, the lady that ran that bar had these 3 big old guard dogs. I mean, let me tell you, them dogs were quite protective of that little office, that property, and that lady. And I had made it a habit to look as I was coming down Lee Street, because you would approach Lee Street, you would approach from the back of this building, and I could see the whole back of it, the parking lot. And so I made it a habit as I'm walking down that street and approaching this church building to see if the dogs were out, because I had encountered the dogs before, and they're on protective mode, and I really didn't want to take any chances with the dogs out. And the lady had also said, if they were out, it's probably best to avoid them, because they were guard dogs. Well, this particular day, it was a summer day and Saturday. I was walking down doing my usual, and I'm looking through there, and I took a look to see if the dogs were out, and I didn't see any of them anywhere. So thinking that the coast was clear, I walked across the parking lot behind the old church building. Walked up. Now, this little building had two little concrete steps up to it. You can't even really call it a porch because basically it was just steps up to the door made of concrete. So I walked up the two steps up onto this tiny, not even a porch, to the top step, placed the mail that they had for that day at the bar into their mailbox, and then turned around to start back down the steps. Now, at this point, I looked down to, watch my footing, and right there, sniffing my ankle, was one of them guard dogs, big old German Shepherd. Let me tell you, I about died right there on the spot. I have no idea where he came from or where he'd been when I came walking down the parking lot, but he had basically done crept up on me and had me cornered on that tiny little porch. Well, I thought, I'd start to try to sweet talk him because, I usually have a good way with animals. So I start trying to sweet talk, and I'm like, hey, boy, how are you? What a good and handsome boy you are, I somehow managed to ease down the steps and was slowly backing away, meanwhile trying to pull my mail satchel, because mail carriers were trained, when there's a dog like that, you just kind of use your satchel and stuff to help shield you. Meanwhile, I'm just slowly backing away, hoping the lady will come out and call her dog. Sweet talking him, trying to, I don't know, make buddies with him or something. I'm thinking maybe he won't eat me if I'm his friend,
Yeah.
So I'm backing up, trying to ease my way away from this dog. But every step I took, that dog stayed right with me, crouched down, that lip curled in a snarl, showing me his teeth. I only heard one little low growl. Now, let me tell you something about dogs. About it, the winter before that, I actually was bit by a dog up in Blacksburg on the mail route. And I wasn't, in any hurry to go through that again. But I'll tell you something I learned about dogs. A dog that's going to bite you doesn't really bark or make a sound. They are like eerily quiet. And they told us in the Carrier Academy that's because a barking dog is an unsure dog. A dog that's going to bite you is already sure what it's going to do, so it doesn't really make a sound. And I believe that's true because they're so creepy. They'll creep right up on you like that with their lip curled. So anyway, this dog is, right there at me. So I kept backing up and backing up. So I back across the parking lot towards Main Street, fighting every urge to just turn and run because, that's what I wanted to do. But I knew that if I started running or made any kind of a sudden move, well, that would probably be a mistake. And, I didn't want to do that either. So I kept backing away, aware that I was soon going to be up to the sidewalk on Main Street and then would have no place to go except into busy Saturday summer morning Main Street in Blacksburg.
Dang.
I could hear the cars going past me, behind me, and I was getting more scared by the second, I'll tell you. And I wasn't sure if I was going to get mauled first or ran over, like backing blindly out into the street. And at about this point, I remember hoping somebody driving by would see what was going on and stop to help, hoping anybody would see. And I distinctly remember, I may have even said it out loud. I honestly can't remember, but I know my thoughts and words were, help me, Jesus. Right? Now, I'm not an overly religious person, but, I do distinctly remember either thinking or saying, help me, Jesus. Well, then all of a sudden, lo and behold, suddenly there was this young man standing there beside me on my right-hand side. He very calmly says to the dog something like, hey, easy there, boy. Everything's okay. There's no need for all that. Well, let me tell you, it was just like flipping a switch. That dog went from being this guard dog who was like, was ready to bite me. Now, all of a sudden, it's rolling over in submission to this young man who proceeds to reach down and pet this dog who has always been nothing but a vicious guard dog that I have ever seen. And I'm standing here, I'm standing there. I don't even know what to think, So this dog, he was known for being a fierce guard dog, was now bowing to this young man with this gentle voice and looking for all the world like he's the sweetest little puppy on God's green earth, Well, at this point, the lady that owned the business and the dog, she comes over and she's all, I'm so sorry, and she gets her dog and, she's apologizing profusely, and she turns and starts to get the dog inside. And now here's where things get real interesting. Now, I turned to tell this young man thank you and to get his name, but he was gone. Now, I can believe that this young man could have very easily approached me without me seeing him, because my eyes and attention were completely on the dog, What I don't know or can answer is this. When the lady came out and got the dog, I looked at her while she was talking. I then looked back over to my right to tell this young man, he was my for real hero, thank you for helping me. What's your name? But he, like I said, he was gone. And now he easily could have showed up unnoticed by me, but there is no way at all he could have walked away and me not be able to see him.
And that whole
all of this
area,
ended up.
yeah, that whole area there is completely flat. You can see for a good ways.
It's wide. Exactly. Now, it's been probably 20 years easily since I've been in that parking lot, but I know then there's no way he could have walked away without me being able to see him.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I had a clear view of both the parking area behind and beside the building, the church building, the sidewalk in front of the building, and at least a block up Lee Street behind it. And this dude was nowhere to be seen. He was gone. Gone. He was just gone. He had literally just disappeared. Now, my thoughts are that, I don't know, maybe he was an angel that was sent to help me when I cried out for help. I don't know. Where did he go? I don't know. But I tell you, he wasn't there. He was there when I needed him. This dog, I don't think I ever saw that dog. I mean, like I said, it was like a sweet little puppy. If you had ever seen this guard dog in guard dog mode, you would know how unbelievably shocked I was to see this dog. The whole thing was just so weird. And so, when it was all said and done, I just kind of shakily walked back across the street and got back in my truck and sat there. And I'm still looking, trying to find this. I don't know where he went. He disappeared. Was he real? I mean, he definitely stopped, But and I've since heard that people that have been in that church building have had strange encounters in there. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they have, but
yeah. When I was helping out with the downtown Blacksburg with their ghost tour, the lady, I can't remember. I think it's Stephanie was her name, but she sent me a couple stories where the staff at Cabo Fish Taco have said that that it's definitely haunted there, that people working there will feel like somebody bump up against them and kind of put their hand on them, and then there's nobody there, or things like poltergeist type activity, stuff will fall off shelves. And
oh, wow.
so maybe,
I'll tell you,
it's the same kind of thing, or it's the same area.
I mean, I never had any, well, after my encounter with the guard dog, it was agreed that the owner, that she would move her mail delivery from the box on that little building to it being delivered inside the bar in the old church. Mm-hmm. So to avoid the dogs, and that way with the carriers, we didn't even go in that back parking lot anymore or near the little building. We would just come down Lee and go all the way down to the corner and hang out right there on Main and enter Cabo, which is now Cabo, through the front door. And then when you go in there, the bar was in the very back of the building. So you come in the front door and it's way in the back. And so that's what we started doing to avoid the dogs. And once inside, you had to walk all the way through to the very back. And there was a spot designated there on the bar where she would, if she had any outgoing mail, that's where she'd put it. And had any mail for her, you'd set it there. It was usually, so just, just a few small lights on. It's always dark in the very front. I could come in from outside and it was bright. So I had to stand there a second, let your eyes adjust. But there was like a few little small lights in the back around the bar. So you walk back through there, to get to the bar and drop the mail off. And, but I can remember, I don't remember ever seeing the lady in there when I came or went after that. but it was always so quiet and empty in there, and it was really creepy. It was like, you hear like silence, so you can just hear the silence. I mean, it was like,
Mm-hmm.
it was like you could hear the silence in there, and something about it just always creeped me out, and I always felt like I was being watched, which, because I would look to see
Yeah.
if there was like cameras or something to see if, because I always felt like I was being watched in there. So I never wasted any time. I would just go on back and do my thing and get on out of there. I always felt,
I've
like
been
a big relief when I got back out on the sidewalk and out of the building.
Yeah, I've been a couple places like that where it just feels like there's like a million eyes on you and watching you.
Yeah, yeah, and I would try to, I tell myself, "Hey, you're just being silly." I thought maybe it was just, just nervous from where, I'd had my little traumatic experience out in the parking lot. But I don't know. I mean, I can believe people are having issues because it always felt strange in there. It never felt church-like. And I used to, I thought about it, and I thought maybe, what happens when you take a church and make it a bar, in a college town. Who knows?
Yeah, it could have upset some former members or something.
It could. It very well could. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, as far as this young man that turned up to save me,
that seemed like something
I have
good. Yeah.
That was a good thing, and
Yeah.
and he was it was just, it was one of those things, maybe stop and go home. I was sitting there going, now I know I just saw this man where, and I'm looking for him. I mean, I really wanted to talk to this man, and he was just gone. But I tell you, I can close my eyes and I can still see that young man. He was, yeah. I tell you, he had auburn colored hair. And I was forever after that because, usually around the same areas in the neighborhoods, you kind of see a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever saw him before or after, but I tell you, it doesn't matter because he was there that day. And that dog turned to like putty in his hands. I mean, it was just a strange experience. I don't know what went on there. Maybe it was something, maybe it was nothing, but it was very strange. I was happy.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating experience. I hope that you guys, the viewers, also think this was a fascinating experience like I did.
Yeah,
it's a really great story.
Yeah, I'm curious what the viewers, who they think. Do they think he was just,
You guys think
what were their thoughts?
he was a spirit? Do you think he was a guardian angel? Let us know in the comments what you think. And Julie, thank you a ton for coming on again. We'll definitely have to get you on for more stories in the future. I know you've got more.
Oh, you're welcome anytime. I have a few. I have a few up my sleeve. Yeah.
All right.
Anytime.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And remember, if you have a story you would like for us to feature on here, you can email us at spookyappalachia@gmail.com. It's down there in the ticker if you need to see it. We've got a Google form linked in the description. And also thank you to all of our Patreons, Adam, Alvin, Brandon, Charles, Chris, Danielle, Donald, Jeff, Jonnie, Jordan, Julia, Linda, Misty, Sheryl, Taylor, and our content creator Patreon, Scott, who's an author. His link's in the description. Werewolf Radar Podcast, also in the description linked. And our very own Jared King TV, who also does some great stories. His link's in the description as well. And thank you all for tuning in. And one more time, big thanks, Julie.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. And we'll catch you all next time. Good night. Hey, folks. Welcome to Spooky Appalachia. This week I've got a fan on. She goes by the name Vitriol Plays. Hopefully I pronounced that right.
Perfect.
And she's got a pretty interesting story from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I think you said it happened in 2014 or 15?
Correct. 2014.
Okay. And there were some experiences going on in your household when you guys were remodeling an attic?
Yes.
I believe.
Yeah, all
Okay.
the activity centered around my son, who was 4 years old at the time. And it started around the time that we were remodeling our attic, which was going to be his bedroom. So what happened originally was once construction started, I took him upstairs to see what would be his new bedroom. And as soon as he got up to the top of the stairs, I was holding his hand and he just started saying hi. And he kept repeating hi, hi, hi. And I looked at him and he was like, why won't he say hi to me? And I was like, okay, we're just going to go back downstairs because that
Oh
freaked me
my
out.
gosh.
Um, so I didn't really think anything of it. And of course, I was home alone with him at the time. And sometimes it's scary being the adult in the house. You have to make the adult decisions. It's
Yeah.
definitely a moment that I looked around like, who else is around me to support me here? But um, eventually, as construction continued, we started to have more events like that. And then the most extreme event was maybe about a month into the construction. It was the middle of the night, and my husband was working, of course. And I could hear my son in the other room, who, again, mind you, is 4, laughing. So, 3 o'clock in the morning, he's laughing. I'm like, okay, no good can come of this
Yep.
because he has to be doing something naughty, right? So I
Yep.
go in, and he's standing in the middle of his bedroom, and all the lights are on. So I look at him and I just say, what are you doing? And he said that he woke up because the man that lives upstairs, which was the attic where the construction was happening, came and turned all the lights on. So I just said, oh, that's strange. Let's go back to bed. And he
Wow.
elaborated more on it the next day and told me that the person that lives upstairs, who is a ghost, is also sometimes a statue. And I wasn't sure what to make of that. And then as the months went on, he kept adding more and more to the story, like, oh, I found out how the man upstairs died. He died when there was music playing in the background, and he would describe like drowning scenarios and just all of these things that you would think a 4-year-old wouldn't have knowledge of.
Wow.
And a little bit more background about our house also is that because we live in a Pittsburgh neighborhood, it's a fairly old home. And we were told when we were touring the house, the inspector said that there used to be an apartment in the attic and there was a sink and everything up there. And he described the apartment, even though he had no knowledge of there ever having been anyone that lived up there, which was just mind boggling. And I didn't really have many experiences with what I would consider a ghost. Most of them have come from him. But I did at one point when all of this was happening and I was probably at my most freaked out and panicking, I did hear someone say, excuse me, and I felt someone touch my shoulder and everything kind of calmed down after that.
Huh. Do you still live there?
Yes.
Has anything happened to you or him since?
He had one more episode once construction was done, and we were in his room, we were reading bedtime stories, and he looked over my shoulder and sat up in bed and started angrily yelling, I see you! I see you! And then eventually I calmed him down and he was able to go to bed, and he refuses to sleep in the attic now. He doesn't even go up there, but he doesn't have any memory of any of these things happening. When they ask him, he gets really scared about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
What'd your husband say about all this? Did you tell him?
Yeah, I've told him, and he's of course skeptical, as am I. I'm a sane,
Yeah.
rational person who is a scientist, so all of this seems very wild, but it's hard to believe unless you are here. There was one incident where there were a lot of people here, where he came down from the attic when he was still sleeping up there, and it was pretty late at night. It was probably around midnight, but we had people over for a dinner party, so we were down talking, and then he had gone to bed. But then he came down from the attic and he was giggling, but he also had a nosebleed and he was leaving bloody handprints everywhere and said something about the man in the attic, but I couldn't understand what he was saying. And then that was terrifying and everyone was so horrified. was like, you see what I have to
Wow.
live with?
Wow. Yeah, my son's he's 3. I definitely know how you feel there with that.
Yeah. 3 is the perfect age. 3 to 5, I think, is whenever you have the most activity of people reporting seeing ghosts. So I'm glad that he
Yeah,
grew
he
out of
talks.
it.
Yeah, my son talks about ghosts all the time, but we brush it off. He says that there's a ghost outside standing sometimes.
Oh my goodness.
We just kind of shrug it off, but it does make you wonder where
It
it came
really
from.
does.
We've never talked about ghosts either around
Yeah,
here.
that's how I felt. I never really brought up anything like that, and I always wonder if the man in the attic had some kind of connection to the Titanic because early on he had an obsession with the Titanic too, and I
Huh?
had never told him about the Titanic. Like, how would he know about that?
That's so strange.
Yeah,
I think one of the creepiest parts was when you said he was like a statue.
yeah. What
Like
does that
I could
mean?
just picture this like an old man standing in a like a bedroom attic type thing, frozen like a
Yeah,
statue. That's crazy. It sounds like a residual type haunting.
it does.
They
All
say
the bits and pieces.
sometimes,
Yeah,
yeah, they say that sometimes that doing construction and stuff on houses can stir that kind of stuff up. So who knows? Who knows? It's
I was
definitely
very
creepy.
thankful. I was thankful that it calmed down after
Yeah,
the
that's
construction.
that's really good. It didn't sound like it did any harm either, so that's
Hmm.
also good.
Agreed. I had some local ghost hunters offer to come in and look around, but I didn't want to stir anything up. I was like, no, thank
Yeah,
you.
I would be afraid if it wasn't no harm was coming or wasn't
Yes.
really disturbing anything to bring them in and stir it up more. Definitely, I would.
Yeah, we lost some sleep, but that was about it. So if that's the worst that happens, then I'll
Yeah,
take it.
yeah, and at that age, you lose all kinds of sleep, which I do pretty frequently now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this story. I know you have a Twitch channel that I come by and check out every once in a while. Do you want to tell my viewers about your Twitch channel? Maybe they can
I
come
would
check
love
you
to.
out.
Yeah, thank you so much. I do
Uh-huh.
stream occasionally. My Twitch name is Vitriol Plays, and I like to stream point and click adventure games, role playing games, really anything that strikes my fancy, but I love a good story in a video game. So I'm looking for some suggestions on what to play. We also have a podcast,
Yeah,
onceuponawasteland.com,
I've
found
seen
wherever
that.
podcasts are found. And most of my time goes to that rather than streaming, but I do stream occasionally. So thank you for the support.
Hmm. And yeah, definitely be sure and check her out. And um, again, thanks for sharing this story. If you have a story you'd like to share, you can email me, spookyappalachia@gmail.com. You can submit a story using our Google form. And newly added, just a couple days ago, I started a Facebook group, Spooky Appalachia, where you can share your stories. A couple people have shared some stories on there already. And big thanks to our Patreons who support us: Adam, Alvin, Brandon, Charles, Chris, Danielle, Donald, Jeff, Jonnie, Jordan, Julia, Linda, Misty, Sheryl, Taylor, and our content creator Patreon, Scott, who's an author. You can check out his link tree in the description below. Werewolf Radar. They're a paranormal comedy podcast. Their link's in the description. And our very own Jared King TV. His link to his YouTube is in the description as well. I will put a link to your Twitch channel and podcast in the description also. Does that
Thank
sound
you.
good? Yeah,
That's
no problem.
fantastic.
Get me some links and I'll add those to the description as well. And well, thank you all for tuning in.
Hey, folks. I hope you enjoyed this super long cut. If you've made it to the end, that can mean only one thing. You are a super, super fan. And Well, we're doing a giveaway for you super fans. So if you email Jared, let's see, what is his email? It is kingjared1981@gmail.com. Tell him you want a Spooky Appalachia sticker. We got 50 stickers to give away. And if you are one of the first 50 to email him and say, I want a sticker, you send him your name and address, he'll send one to you. And his email again is kingjared1981@gmail.com. And let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this collection. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do more. I keep getting more and more feedback that people love them. So if I can think of ideas on how to do themes of them, I'll keep putting them out. It's a lot of fun. And have a good evening, y'all.